Welcome to the Canadian Virtual CFO Conference. My name is Marc Belaiche. I'm president of TorontoJobs.ca. Thanks for being on. We have about half an hour left in the event, and we will run the panel all the way up until that time. So thanks very much for all of you for being on. I will introduce the panelists one by one, talk a little bit about their backgrounds, and then we'll open it up to questions and so on. So Kimberly Stevens is Chief Financial Officer at Appili, Therapeutics. Kimberly, thanks very much for being on. Perhaps you can give viewers an idea as to what you do, what your role is, a little bit about Appili as well, and
Sure.
exciting times.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Marc's already said, Kimberly Stevens, Chief Financial Officer of Appili Therapeutics. We are an infectious disease focused company. And so when the pandemic hit, we pivoted into working on an antiviral for COVID, but we have four other products in our pipeline focused on infectious diseases. I am the CFO, but as most CFOs know, you wear multiple hats, and it's not just financial and budget and regulatory that you're responsible for, but also HR, IT, facilities management, etc. So happy to join the panel today and looking forward to the conversation.
Terrific. Thanks very much, Kimberly. And Bruce Singer is CEO, founder of Canada CFOs, Inc. And Bruce, you are live. And thanks
Marc,
so much for being here.
Thank you. Nice meeting everybody. Nice meeting the co-panelists. And Marc, thank you at Toronto Jobs for putting this event on. Much appreciated. Thank you for inviting me. What my company does is we provide interim, fractional, and part-time CFOs to all kinds of clients on a time basis. Pretty much in a nutshell. So if any company needs a CFO for, let's say, 1 day a week or 1 day a month or a project or interim, we're the people you phone. And it's a pretty simple business. And that's it. Our motto is, if you're looking for a top 10% performer, call us. We consider ourselves to be a very high quality shop, and we're very proud of what we do, and we're very careful in the people we place. And we're happy to be here. Thanks, Marc.
Thanks, Bruce. And Beenish Shah is Chief Financial Officer at True Patriot Love Foundation. Beenish, thanks very much for being on here. And how about yourself? Talk a little bit about True Patriot Love Foundation, which is a great organization, and also what you do.
Sure, absolutely. So thank you again for having me today. So I am, Beenish Shah, I'm the Chief Financial Officer for True Patriot Love Foundation, which is a national charity helping military and veterans and their families. And and I am the head of dealing with anything that relates to finance and everything from treasury management to financial reporting to strategic advisory to the board and to all of our stakeholders.
Excellent. Thanks for being on here, Beenish. Jeff Young. Jeff, hopefully we can get the areas going. Acting CFO of Medisun, Inc. And CEO. Jeff, hopefully we can hear you okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about your organization and what you do?
Sure. So Medisun, Inc., we're one of Canada's largest privately held cannabis producers. We provide wholesale product to a lot of the large LPs that you would see listed on the various TSX Exchange and New York Stock Exchange. We're located in Chatham, Ontario. We have a 13-acre production facility, about 500,000 square feet, 300 employees, and produce about 45,000 kilograms of cannabis flower a year. My role, I started as CFO about 2 years ago, was promoted to CEO a year later. And as many have mentioned, you wear multiple hats, even from financing activities, capital raising, to compliance, business development. And, certainly been a very intense time over the last 12 to 18, 24 months to deal with both the pandemic and then an emerging industry has made it certainly a fun roller coaster ride.
Very much so. Thanks very much for being on here, Jeff. If you have any questions for anybody on the panel, by all means, throw them in the chat on the right-hand side. It's always good to get your questions in early because the panel does run quickly through the time. We have 25 minutes left here. So Kimberly, back to you. what are you seeing as your challenges? I mean, obviously with COVID and everything else in your industry, obviously it's an important time. But from a CFO's perspective, what are the challenges that you're facing, maybe with your team, working from home, onboarding, et cetera?
Sure. Yeah. No, I would say that one of the biggest issues that I think that we have dealt with is the fact that we were already a half virtual company because we have offices in Toronto and we're based out of Halifax, Nova Scotia. My CEO is in the United States. So we were using video conferencing and cloud-based servers way ahead of the pandemic. But what I'm noticing is that the lack of being able to meet face-to-face with our colleagues, especially new colleagues that we've onboarded since, we're really missing out on that rapport, that kind of interaction that you can have off the cuff conversations with people, and trying to get to know the new staff or new colleagues that you don't have that history to deal like in interaction and that social aspect of things. And so, originally I was trying to encourage my team to, use our technology, which is Zoom. We're a Zoom based company. We try to say, like, instead of like booking a meeting and having a set schedule, just randomly Zoom someone as if you're knocking on their door. If you have a question, don't wait and have it scheduled in a meeting and in a formal agenda. But I'm still thinking that there's a disconnect there between people having that kind of ad hoc conversations and not being able to really brainstorm and feel that kind of interaction because of the pandemic and the fact that we can't see people face to face, even though we are relatively used to this virtual world.
Fair enough. Yeah, good point. We've had a new panelist join us, Trevor Ellis, Chief Financial Officer at Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine. Trevor, can you hear us?
Yep, I can. Can you hear me?
Terrific. Yeah, thanks very much for joining. I know we got a couple minutes late here with technical issues, but thanks for being on. Perhaps you've missed the first round, so I'll start with you, coming back to you. Just maybe talk a little bit about yourself and your organization and a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so I'm the CFO, and that role is a bit of a misnomer in the sense that financial is actually a small part of my job. I mean, we all have these different roles that are added on. So for me, it's IT, it's advancement, it's facilities, and I always miss a department, but you get the sense that the CFO role seems to have evolved into this multifaceted scoped role. And I've worked in a lot of different industries. For me, the key thing is the transferability of our skill sets, that we can take them to any different job and different sector, and there's a lot of familiarity there.
Yeah, very much. Terrific. Thanks, Trevor. Can you hear us? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, terrific. Thanks very much for that intro. So, kind of opening up to the panel. Really anybody who's comfortable answering, because there's a number of us here. So, what other technology are you using? Are you using anything interesting? I mean, obviously everybody knows about Zoom and Teams and so on. It seems like Skype is kind of past. We're moving on to different things from a business perspective. But are you using any other technology, accounting systems that you're happy with? You want to recommend to people watching? Any other systems that you think would be of interest to chat about? Beenish, maybe start with you.
Sure. So some of the charities have suffered significantly during the pandemic. One, to be honest, have had revenue. So has to do with being able to deal with the current change and just dropping everything and being able to pivot, right? That's like the word of the pandemic here, pivot. So a lot of that has to do with tech. So as finance, it's easy for things to be very traditional in some ways, and it's become very, very important now to be on point with the digital. So we're in the middle of implementing Cognos, TM1 planning analytics, but we are also, we have been looking to a lot of other softwares that just facilitate some of the reporting. So that from a finance standpoint, but obviously from our everyday, we definitely use Microsoft, like Zoom, like you said, Microsoft Teams. We're looking at MS Dynamics as well. So obviously there's a lot right now that you can use, and it is a good time to automate yourself because of the fast-paced nature. We're also looking at electronic check processing as well, and to move away from the traditional just, having checks because of the lag, from the check being printed out and being sent, etc. So there is obviously quite a lot of technology advancements that our company is looking at, and I assume a lot are also doing in the industry.
And what about budgeting? I know, let's talk maybe with Jeff, because you're in an industry that probably there's quite a bit of fluctuation here. How do you handle budgeting during this time period in an industry that's really changing quite regularly, quite quickly?
You wake up on Monday, you get out your piece of paper, write down this week's plan, and move on to next week. Realistically, it's unbelievably fluid, and we have to adapt every single week. I mean, pivot is, it's a pandemic word for the cannabis space. And pivot time 5 because it's constantly evolving, lots of consolidation, lots of moving pieces, trying to figure out the efficiency in the supply chain from wholesale to the final end product. It really is, you budget to the best of your ability, but you really have to be flexible and nimble and be able to move with the times. Otherwise, you're going to be in a lot of trouble if you're just stagnant.
Right. What about you, Trevor? What changes have been taking place there?
Well, we're undergoing a merger with another college in Vancouver, and that's brought. It's really a good opportunity for us to take a look at our systems and decide what works best. So some of the things that we've talked about already, like Teams and Now, the other organization uses something different. So we're actually going through that methodical approach to say, well, if we have to do this function, what works best? And then one thing I have found being in a sort of a role that has an IT element is we have systems, but we don't use them effectively. And the knowledge base within our clients and staff is that they're using the tip of the iceberg of the system. And my role is really to exploit the system so we get the most out of it. And this is a great opportunity for us to do this because we have a reason to compare A and B and say, well, what makes sense for a combined entity?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe just to jump in on that point there, one of the things that we've found is, there's a big difference between people talk about data-driven and information. And what we found was a lot of people were producing a lot of data, but they weren't really using it as information because a lot of times you had that ability to meet in person, to share anecdotally what the reports were telling you. Now, we've really had to emphasize and instruct people, like, if you're issuing reports, you have to issue it so that people can actually decipher and understand the information. Don't just produce data. So we've been focusing a lot on the same thing that Trevor mentioned.
Great. Bruce, you've been involved with the, previously called part-time CFO, then an interim, now it's called fractional, going through some changes in terms of terminology. But what are you seeing from a fractional CFO perspective, what they can do to add value for changing times? What are the characteristics of somebody that makes a great fractional CFO?
Okay, the characteristics is someone's got to be, first of all, it's always about fit. Okay, it's never about just because one person is a great fractional CFO in one company doesn't mean they're good at another company. So the fundamentals are pretty much the same, but the major skill sets are really just going beyond the technical. You got to be a lot more. Everybody's got the basic technical. You got to be a lot more strategic. You got to bring ideas to the plate. The CEOs, what they really want, from what they tell me, is someone that can really be their partner, that steps out of just the day-to-day finance function, and steps out of finance and can be more operational. That seems to be consistently a request that keeps coming in. I want a partner. I don't want to just do the day-to-day or the reporting. And that seems to be the big trend. And they want it, and they want those skills they can afford those skills on a part-time basis. That's the key. When you have a company that's going through a cash crunch, they can get it part-time. It doesn't fit in for all companies, but instead of having no CFO, at least they can have a part-time CFO fulfill the function that they desperately need, because right now cash is king, and someone's got to stay on top of things to keep things moving forward. You know?
Yeah, terrific. Maybe Kimberly, there's a lot of HR issues going on right now about, can an employer fire an employee if they don't return to the office? In the US, there's at will, and they can terminate if somebody doesn't want to go back, and that's already been happening if they don't want to take the vaccine, for example. Can an employer force an employee to take the vaccine? What issues have you been having to deal with in your organization that you're comfortable sharing, of course, that may impact how work gets done in the next 3 months, 6 months, year?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is a hot topic. It's not something we've actually had to address at this present time, just given the fact that Toronto has been on lockdown for 6 months now plus. And then in Nova Scotia, because we have many offices and we try to be accommodating as possible, we say in Halifax, you have the same choice if you want to continue to work from home, because we have laptops, servers, cloud-based servers, etc. You're not mandatory to come into the office. But I think going forward, as the vaccines are being developed and rolled out, I think that will be a hot topic for us to have to deal with, and especially because we're an infectious focused company, as to whether or not mandated vaccines are going to be necessary before you're allowed to come back to work. I think it's going to stem conversations about, as countries open up and people are allowed to travel again, are we going to have mandatory quarantine when you come home on personal travel and not come into the office? Like, things like that are going to have to be discussed, because I think that we lived in a world where that was just taken for granted. And now as we move forward, I think given the flexibility that we've shown that people can actually get work done at home, I think that potentially will end up being something that, we might have to be more accommodating and try to make sure that we're protecting the people that are actually at the office and things like that. So it's not something that we've dealt with yet, but I definitely see it coming as the vaccines are being rolled out in Canada.
It's amazing how we've gone from an environment where I got to get special permission to be able to work from home to
right.
please work from home.
And, I think honestly, it's a blessing, or the one silver lining of COVID has been the tarnished opinion of working from home being something that's negative, to the opposite of the fact that people have proven that they can work from home and be productive. Now it's a matter of, like you said, now it's like, do we want you to come into the office?
Yeah. So Marc, the big issue with that is equity amongst staff, because there's some staff that have to be in the office, and there's some that could work totally from home, and some that are in between. And how are we going to, as an organization, decide what those boundaries are? And that's a conversation we started to have, but there are no easy answers to that.
So my name is Marc, President of TorontoJobs.ca. The panel: Bruce Singer, CEO, founder, Canada CFOs. Trevor Ellis is Chief Financial Officer at Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine. Beenish Shah is Chief Financial Officer at True Patriot Love Foundation. Kimberly Stevens is Chief Financial Officer at Appili Therapeutics. Jeff Young is CEO, Acting CFO, Medisun, Inc. So Beenish, maybe for you, do you think things will go backwards? And by that, I mean, if you look at the last, 100 years, things don't go backwards. We move from a rotary phone to a push button phone to a hand phone. We go from fax machine to email. All these situations, we go from newspapers to online. Do you think we're going to go backwards?
It's a good question. I mean, obviously I can't predict the future, but the one thing I can say is there is a push in our organization to go back to the office. I do think, like many have said, the 9 to 5, I think that is out the window. I think it's going to be a flexible workforce. And there is going to be a lot that's going to come out of this pandemic, right? I mean, there is mental health issues that we're seeing with kids who are on screens all day long. So obviously there is going to be a lot that's going to come out of this, people's fears and things like that we'll have to address as a team. But at this point in time, we are predicting that we're going to be as accommodating and flexible as possible. To Trevor's point, there is that conversation because some staff have to go in and some don't. Thankfully, our team is all, okay with that at the moment, but to mandate certain things will be a little bit challenging. And I think we're all keeping that in mind. So that's my take on it. From all of the digital things, I think that's a good improvement. I think cash is.
Oh, you froze.
I think we've lost.
Hello?
Sorry, Beenish. I think you froze there for just a couple of seconds at the end there.
Okay, sorry. But yeah, I think that there will be some, hopefully you didn't miss too much, but there will be some challenges. And I think that we'll all just have to work with what comes our way. And with digital transformation, I think that is all good, right? So as long as we can make it meaningful and, like many said, not just data driven, and focus on communications and our learnings that we've had from the pandemic.
Yeah, good. Jeff or Trevor, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, the key thing that we've got to keep in mind is what makes sense and where can we be flexible. So from one side of our staff, or the cleaning staff that clean our college residents, they have to be on site. Everyone else, we're kind of flexible on. But we need to make sure that we're still, how do we measure productivity? And that's the key thing. We've got to determine if people are not in the office, are we getting what we want from them? And in fact, what we found is we're getting more. So that's why there's probably we're leaning towards keeping people out of the office if they don't want to be there.
Right. Jeff, you were gonna maybe say.
Yeah, I mean, I think Trevor hit on it before a little bit. It was the equity issue of we have a staff that's about 85% are production oriented. So obviously they have to be on site in the facility every day. So there is that inequity, rightfully or wrongfully, feeling between people who can stay at home and others that have to be at the facility. So that's definitely a challenge. That's there is no right or wrong answer. For us, we took a very deliberate corporate initiative when the wage subsidy was announced, and we decided that we were going to use the wage subsidy for exactly what it was to retain staff and employees. And I'm proud to say we've limited any significant layoffs, and we've kept our staff almost fully gainfully employed during this period. And by doing that, you get the reputation of doing the right thing, and that goes a long way with your staff. And I think we kind of, our guiding principle is do the right thing. And this is unusual times, and you can't have hard and strict policies. You do have to look at things case by case, because that's the world we live in.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Wage subsidy and government programs, without turning into a political thing in any way. But how do you generally feel? How does everybody feel about the government programs that have been put out? Good, bad, could be improved?
It's good.
No comment. Bruce?
I think it's actually quite good. I'm using it for my staff. Okay, not the CFOs, the internal. I think they're doing what they can, and I think they've really stepped up on the wage subsidy. I think they've done a lot. How much could they do? It's nice to do more, but I think it's working. From my point of view, I think it's working, and I think it's a good program. I'd like to add to what Jeff said, and I agree with everything they said. I guess it's really. You talked about the new normal going forward. Yeah, I just want to mention there's a new normal being evolved. So I don't know if it's a step back. It might just evolve to something new. But it comes down to, and Trevor said it, the productivity went up. And I think it's a testament that you show your employees you trust them. When you build, this is an opportunity to really build loyalty with your employees and build trust, because they work at home. And I think that goes a long way. And employees really feel that, and their productivity will go up because of it. And I just want to say that, and I think there's another opportunity here with staff, and long term. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity again to build that loyalty, to build trust. If you start questioning, you're working at home, are you working? You're not working. That's kind of old school. You just got to trust they'll do the job.
Right. And Kimberly, thanks, Bruce. Kimberly, is there anything you want to promote? Anything that people watching can help you in terms of what's going on at Appili?
I mean, keep your eyes open for in the next week. As I mentioned, we're working on a COVID drug for the treatment of COVID. So as much as we are big supporters of the vaccine and encourage everyone to get vaccinated, unfortunately, we've known all along that COVID is going to be the next flu, and it's going to be with us forever. And so to be able to have an option to be treated once actually someone does get COVID is something that we think is important. And so we're keeping our fingers crossed. And I think the other thing I would just add to that, and I know this is not CFO related either, but I think it's important just to point out is that infectious diseases have been taken advantage of, I think, over the last couple decades, and the fact that people just assume that they can take an antibiotic and make themselves feel better. And I think that COVID has brought light to the fact that it is an actual issue, that infectious diseases can have a huge impact on the economy and the world. And so it's brought light to that. And I think it's made our job easier at Appili to try to continue on that messaging, and the other drugs in our pipeline that we're working on are just as important as our COVID drugs. So thank you for that opportunity.
No problem. And Beenish, got to ask you too, True Patriot Love Foundation, do you want to promo it? Talk about how people can donate or be involved in the organization?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're helping like 33,000 military families regularly. We partner with thousands of program partners, helping people in rehab, recovery, mental health. So definitely check it out, TruePatriotLove.com. Donate, help us out. I think just my parting words, generally speaking, to anyone who's a leader right now is developing an art to managing uncertainty and having structured and calm approaches to whatever comes your way. And I think slowly but surely we'll all figure out a way. Everything is figure outable, and that's the statement that everyone should remember. So that's my point.
Yeah. If we can get a solution in a way to COVID in 1 year worldwide, everything can be fixed, right?
Everything will be. We take each day at a time, and that's, leaders today are dealing with all kinds of complex issues, and I think you just need to focus on what's in front of you and have structured approaches and inspire change and just follow through with it, so.
Yeah. Excellent. 30 seconds, Jeff. Anything else you want to add or comment on?
No, I think you're absolutely correct. It's a time to show leadership, and I just I can't overemphasize do the right thing. If you do the right thing and you have loyal staff, I think you'll get through you will come out on the other side. Your staff really is the people you work for really are your biggest assets, and it never becomes more relevant than in a time like this to understand that.
Yeah, very much so. Trevor, 30 seconds to you.
I think the key thing for me is that what we're going through is not short term, it's going to be long term. And with that perspective in mind is you've got to keep your staff aware of behaviors that are good for them in the long term and behaviors that are not, are only dedicated to working for the short term. So long hours, no point killing yourself now, because this is going to be the way we're going to be working for some time. So manage your life accordingly.
Excellent. Well, thanks to all of you. Thanks to everybody for coming to the Canadian Virtual CFO Conference today. The event today was presented by TorontoJobs.ca and TorontoEntrepreneurs.ca, powered by Event Logic with a K.ca. My name is Marc Belaiche, president of TorontoJobs.ca. The panelists, Bruce Singer, CEO, founder, Canada CFOs Inc., Trevor Ellis, chief financial officer at Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine, Beenish, Shah, chief financial officer, True Patriot Love Foundation, Kimberly Stevens, chief financial officer at Appili, Therapeutics, and Jeff Young, CEO, acting CFO, Medisun, Inc. How did you like the event? Let us know. We'll send you a survey to complete after the event. In the next 24 hours, you'll get a link. Let us know. Tell us what you liked about today's event, what you didn't like. I want to thank all the speakers from today's event, the panelists again, and also the team behind the scenes. There's a lot of people involved, Alex, Rachel, and Sandra, Sarah, and Carla. So thanks to them as well. I want to thank our exhibitors and sponsors, TorontoJobs.ca. If you have any staffing needs, visit TorontoJobs.ca or email sales@TorontoJobs.ca. TorontoEntrepreneurs.ca. If you're an entrepreneur, you want to become an entrepreneur, or you're thinking about a business, check it out, TorontoEntrepreneurs.ca. And EventLogic with a K.ca. If you'd like to sponsor, exhibit at, or speak at an upcoming event, visit EventLogic.ca. And we have a lot of great upcoming events. I posted them in the chat earlier, so you can scroll through and you can check things out at the Canadian Fractional and Interim Executive Summit, for example, on Tuesday, May 18th. There's the Canadian Virtual Tax Conference that happens on Friday, May 28th. The Canadian Virtual CPA PD Day happens on Wednesday, June 9th, so if you need some PD. And the Canadian Virtual Controllers Conference happens on Tuesday, June 22nd. And you can stay connected with all of these events by visiting the link that I'm going to provide to you in the chat area as well. And feel free to connect with me as well. If there's anything I can help you out with, there's my LinkedIn contact information as well. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channels. And we do tack on an extra 10 minutes here, so you can check out our networking area. There's still time to visit our expo area. And I want to thank you all for coming, and watch out for an announcement for our next event as well. And again, thank you to all of you on the panel here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marc. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.